I cannot believe this day. It is so messed up. What the heck is going on? Hi, Tina. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to have something to say to the tech support. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to transition my cameras and see if they're working. That's blurry. I'm going to have to unblur that. Now you know what I use. That's too close. Oh my goodness. Just because I changed something for my buttons. Let's see if I can focus on a pack of needle or the glue. This will be better. Yay. Okay. Now we got top. Do we have the top? Oh my goodness, is it upside down? No, my hand is not showing in the screen and it's there. So I don't know what to tell you guys. This is so weird. I feel like everything is just trying to make it so I can't go live this time. That camera's working? Come on. If the top's not working, I'm just going to not use the top. Front's working and close. That's the most important ones. All right, so I'm going to go around this on the... this is just frustrating. Sorry, you guys. Again. So... that's a little brighter than usual. So like the camera settings got changed. I'm going to turn this light down. Happy Saturday. Gosh. So the goal is to keep the fabric up against the guide. And I'm pushing toward the foot. And this is how yours should behave. So if yours is not able to be pushed toward, check to make sure your snap-on adapter is screwed, that the screw is screwed on tight. And that if it slides under, then tighten your pressure a little bit on the foot pressure. Should be able to rely on the foot. And I have something that's stopping my fabric from feeding through. That was actually what caused everything. I moved that thing and it hit my computer camera cords, and so okay, I'm going to come down to the end here and stop with the needle down. We lost the first part of the chat. We have a bunch of broken videos. I think it's time for me just to do a pre-recorded version of this where it isn't live. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed, so you don't strain your muscles on your arms. Push toward the foot. And this is 1/8 of an inch at the largest distance away, because we're going to sew a 1/4 inch to sew the binding on. And the goal is to not have it slip. So putting the basting glue on first will prevent that from happening. It is something else, though. I mean, if you think about it, here I am. I'm able to have a show. It is astounding. I used to have to go on people's shows, and sometimes they would charge us up to $5,000 for just 5 minutes to be on their show. And then there were the shows like Cheryl. Oh, I got too many educators in my head. Cheryl Borden. It was free to go on her show. You just had to get there. So are you saying, Charlene, that your husband is an engineer? Engineering is a genetic defect in our family. That's always what I say when people go, did you go to engineering school? So no, I was just kind of born this way. My father was in the Army Corps of Engineers. And he invented the first electronic stethoscope and was involved in the invention of the in-the-ear hearing aid, in addition to the Hoop-It-All line of embroidery hoops. Yay. Okay, so now we're where we were supposed to be. I just got to remember I can't use my top camera because it's frozen. I'm not frozen, so we're good to go. Okay, no idea why that's happening. My son is a computer science, software, coder, engineer kid. And my daughter is, she's got her creative hand in so many different things. It's astounding. All right, so enough of that. We want to have the piping be on the top. So instead of sewing on your top, you're going to start with the bottom, and then you're going to flip to the front. I know some people teach you to do the opposite, but I have found that it's always better to do back to front. However, what I show is how to sew binding on by machine, and the last thing you see is the top. So you know it's going to look good. If it looks good while you're sewing it, then it's going to look good when it's done. All right, Claire, what are you doing? I can't believe this is happening. It's not like it was one camera causing all the problem. It's like the cameras are lost as to who is who. All right, so here we go. All right, I was going to get off topic. Got to control myself. Okay, back first. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark a spot, which you should do away from the focal point. So, you know, people's eyes are going to be fixed on the creative area the most. So the furthest away spot from that, where the lamp will be positioned, the lamp's going to cover that B. So I have to do more B's. We're going to have it overlap 9 inches at the end. So we don't want to start stitching at the end of this binding. And we also want a gap 9 inches apart or thereabouts. With all the things that we do, I'm pretty good on measuring, but this would be one time when I'll double check. 9 inches is the magic number. Can't use my top camera. I also never start on a corner. I always start in from the corner. I lost my binding. Where the heck did it go? It's on the floor. Sorry for my head in the camera's way. Is Amy just getting here? You missed a lot. Gosh. You shouldn't even be here. I'm just kidding. I just totally had computer problems again. This time it wasn't internet, so I don't know. I thought all this stuff was supposed to happen last month, not this month. So remember, this is going to basically disappear because we're going to wrap it around. It is a flat full binding, and it's going to go like that. So that's why this piece has to be bigger. Just to recap, the color that you have for the piping is 1 3/4, and the other piece of binding is 1 1/2. Thank you for letting me know, Janet, that it's back on Facebook. This is the weirdest week for this. I just, oh no, now the dog's going to go at it again. I'm going to need wine today. It's a wine day. Maybe not. Maybe a shot of tequila. Now what are your husbands saying? Yes, I get it from my father. My mother was incredible as well. She came home one day and she was like ripping up the floor. And I remember going, don't you need Dad for that? And she goes, if you wait for a man, you'll be waiting your whole life. You need to learn how to do these kind of things. So we ripped all the wallpaper off our walls and hung wood paneling. And all right, so enough of that. I walked down memory lane. I'm going to set my foot for a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you guys. I'm also bringing out washi tape because part of putting binding on is knowing when to stop your needle, where to stop your needle, and where's my measuring tape again? Oh my goodness. Tinkerbell's in her bed. I just had to find it on Thursday. Where'd I put it? I need someone to follow me around and pick up after me, I guess. I did too many things. I moved a machine, starting with another machine this week. Oh, there it is. It's in my lap. I had already gotten it out. Oh my gosh. This is the comedy hour. What is that? Wine sounds good. Orange mango. All right. When the show is over, we can all end with a cocktail. Pretend we're at the beach and having a vacation. I'm selecting a left needle position, and then these are the lines on the measuring tape. And I move the needle, you lower your needle on one of the lines, and then you move the guide on the foot to the 1/4 inch mark. If you have need for a scant 1/4 inch, well, you can go back scant as well. So this is a foot capable of sewing all your different seam allowances from 1/16 inch to just over 1/4 inch. Unless your sewing machine does not have left needle position. Or if your widest width is only 4 millimeters wide, you'll be just slightly under that. So that's what I'm doing. Thank God that worked. By the way, if you watch my quilt binding video that I did, it's got everything really awesome. The camera is set right here so you can see everything. So bring my needle down onto the measuring tape, move the guide over to the 1/4 inch mark. Now I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you don't want to bring the needle into the measuring tape because you don't want to ruin your needle or your measuring tape. Then we place the fabric, place the foot so that the guide is sitting right off the edge. But before we do that, we set up the foot for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Or set up your tape. Chocolate works. Chocolate covered cherries. I got those the other day. I wasn't going to buy anything like that. I was at Sprouts and it was right at the register. So I went, oh, well, I must be meant to have chocolate covered cherries. It's my favorite fruit. So needle down. And now what we're trying to determine is 1/4 inch away from where the needle is, so that we stop 1/4 inch away from the edge of the quilt. And you don't need it to go all the way across, but you want to kind of be straight too. You really want to be straight. This would be a time to have a square. And then along the edge of the feed dogs, I just put my finger down and tear. And now I know that this edge up here, not down here, that edge up there is where you want to bring, that's when you stop. And it'll all make sense in a little bit. Another thing that I do, so we want to know where to stop over here too. I think I do that when I start sewing. I can't remember why I do that, so we'll figure it out in a minute. Needle up. This is why I want to do a cheat sheet for you. Remember 9 inches. We want to start away from the edge so that we can join the two ends of the binding together with a mitered seam allowance. So as you're sewing, you're going to go forward and back, especially whenever you have a join like that, because we're going to really overhandle the fabric when we bring these two fabrics together. Sometimes I will even go back again. So now your focus is over here as you're coming up, pushing toward the foot, and you're peeking here to see that tape come up. And I'm almost to the end of the tape. I feel like I'm not right here. If I'm not right, it's because I didn't put the tape down straight. What have I got that makes me do this right? I don't usually struggle. Prove it, Claire. Doesn't feel right. You bring your needle down and then you shorten your stitch length. So I did 2 touches and I'm aiming for the corner now. And then I go back. Then we bring our needle down on that spot. Is that what I do? God, help. No. I think I just cut it. Yeah. Goodness. Now I hear the Beatles in my head. Help, I need somebody. Then we just go like this. I'm definitely different on Saturday. What you're trying for when you fold on your corners is to have it be right square along this edge and that edge. And then press. And this is when I'm pretty aggressive. Push hard on this so that you get a really nice crisp fold. It's going to help when we turn to the other side. This is a lot of thickness. And what you're going to notice is the sewing machine foot and any foot will have a harder time getting up and over the mountain of fabric that it's trying to sew on. Oh my goodness. I've growled quite a few times today. So you start up on the mountain. In other words, don't start right along the edge of the fabric. Start up on the fabric. So a couple stitches. This gets the stitch engaged, and then go back and go all the way off, and you won't get stuck. If you've ever gotten stuck on a corner before. One thing helps is shorter or a lengthening of your stitch length, and that is another trick. So now your goal is to keep the binding along the edge of your quilt. And I grab about every 4 inches, and then I push toward the foot. We have our stitch length set for the corner. That's going to make a really short stitch length. So I'll go up to 3.5 length for the majority of the stitching. My elbow was on the quilt, you guys. Of course it was, because I swear, they must have it wrong. This is my week for stuff not going right. Thought it was supposed to be last week. Oh gosh, you know what I did? This thread is so thin, I couldn't see it, and it's actually loop right there was stuck on the foot, stopping it from feeding. Okay, so everything was fine. It was just that. Does this make you guys feel better when you have trouble at home? Now you know Clara has trouble too. Where's my elbow pillow? You're right. It's right here. Thank you. Did you know I wasn't using my elbow? I got out of practice because I was using that big table and I couldn't figure out where to stick the pillow. But my elbow was right along the edge of that. Oh, gosh. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the table that shouldn't be in here, too. Ah, thank you. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Unclench your teeth. In case your teeth were clenched. See, everything like this and this is not good. This is bad behavior. It sets you up for frustration. Every once in a while, I want to peek and see if my top camera is there. It's there, but it doesn't show my hand. Sorry, you guys. Oh no, I'm down to one camera. Oh. Okay, it's back. Oh my goodness. All right, the dog is being disobedient. He's not going outside. It's Saturday at Claire's. Oh, thank you for mentioning the elbow pillow. I am on. Oh, shoot. Thank you, Amy. Told you, Amy's always. Amy. Oh my God. I'm going to yell at him again. Hold on. Somebody moved in the neighborhood and now they've got all these workers there. If I only had a brain. Don't ever do that. Hey, I found something I lost. Supposed to sew on the back side. Thank you, Amy. Gosh, I could have gotten a lot further than that. Start 9 inches down. I gotta go slow on everything. So my daughter would say, "You're supposed to take Saturdays off," and your brain knows it. Yeah, Amy is better days. So for those of you who don't have your name going, eventually I learn your names. So I'm looking for the edge of the tape. Bring the needle down. I feel like it's wrong though. I must have pushed the fabric against it. Or I'm not square. Wouldn't surprise me if I'm not square. I kind of can tell when I'm 1/4 inch away. Do any of you feel like that you can eyeball a 1/4 inch from a mile away now after piecing? That's where it should be. Okay, God, I need your help today. They're always helping me, right? The angels are always watching out for me. Okay, needle down, lift the foot, turn toward the corner, shorten your stitch length, switch cameras so you guys aren't bored looking at me. Come on. Why isn't it working? All right, I'm ignoring the buttons. Can't use the buttons. I push the button and all of a sudden this exclamation point, like a warning, pops up on it. I shouldn't have updated it. That's all there is to it. So down to the corner. Except for you're supposed to do that with a really short stitch length. So it's about normal stitch length if you don't have millimeters is 12 stitches per inch. So we want 20 stitches per inch. And then you go back up. Bring your needle down into that point where the 2 1/4 inch marks meet. Sorry. Cut the thread, lift. Instant replay, doing it right, Amy? Oh my goodness. And then we just bring it back, make a square. Oh, you saw it too, Ayako? Thank you guys. At least you guys pay attention to what I say. Now I know you're watching. Sometimes I picture you guys baking cookies while I'm sewing and you're just listening. Start on. So a couple stitches forward to engage the stitch and then go back. and then come forward. And then also I forgot about pressing really firmly on that fold. All right, here we go. Jeez. I'm really not upset. I'm just laughing at myself. I don't even know how you guys can handle me sometimes. What a week. I think I'm going to take the time to make sure all software has been updated. Unplug everything, replug it in before Thursday. Elbow pillow. What I want to know is how you knew my elbow pillow wasn't there when I wasn't on that camera. So you couldn't even see that my elbow wasn't on the pillow. And for those of you who don't know what an elbow pillow is, this is my elbow pillow, and I have a pattern for this in the school. And you put your elbow down on that, and it saves your bone from getting sore, your elbow from getting sore. It allows you to rest your shoulder, and this is the shoulder I broke years ago, and it always hurts when I don't use the pillow. So I was actually hurting when she mentioned it. Yeah, Janet, I had to shut down everything, turn my computer off. All my cameras are not functioning right. One's not on. So hang in there. I'm only on 2 cameras right now. And I can't use my buttons. So it's a wacky day. Update one software and it messed up all the rest. Should never update right before I go live. Note to Claire. I forgot to lengthen the stitch length. Back to 3.5. Please do not hesitate to ever speak up. If you think I'm doing something wrong, please don't hesitate to question me. I'm never offended by students ever. Sometimes people, going, "Are you sure that you shouldn't stop here when you're in your car?" Could save your life, You saved me all that stitching undoing. It would have been a disaster. So I'm feeling this edge now. And now I'm right. Okay. Needle down. And when you put your needle down, it advanced too far, which it did, then you just lift it up, turning the handle toward you, and slide the fabric forward, and then lower your needle. Because what you're trying to do is sew a diagonal line in 1/4 inch distances. Now you're going towards the point and using a shorter stitch length. Sew to the point and sew back. Stop with and then cut your thread. I've seen some of the neatest things people are doing with crocheting. I had no idea I could have done so much with it. I probably would have kept doing it. One more thing for Claire to do. How many of you feel like you have too many hobbies? Okay, so there we have that square. Square it off on this edge. Square it off on this edge. Now we're going to press. And what you're trying for is a really crisp press. This is going to help you with the miter on the opposite side, and partly why we do not have to hand sew at all. Start on. Sew a couple stitches forward. Lengthen that stitch length back up again. Actually, it's better to do it after you do this part. Go back. Whoopsie. Come on. I was like, my foot control just shot out from under my foot like I squeezed a lemon. one of the injuries that we can get if you're a crafter or anyone that does a lot of things with your hands is injury to your elbow. You can all, oh my God, what was that? What just fell? Something just fell. Jeez. It's a speaker and it's just hanging there. I have to get it. All right, there's gremlins in my sewing room, for sure. All right, so I had a mirror fall off the wall in my bathroom right above the tub an hour before I got out of it. I don't know if I'd have survived it if I hadn't gotten out. And a lot of weird things like that have been happening in the house, like in rooms I'm not in. Things just falling and stuff. I feel like there's someone here that's causing trouble. So if you do a lot of hand sewing and your elbow is on a hard surface, well, it causes a breakdown of tissue in your body. It's what causes bed sores when you're in bed too long and you sit in one spot. So similar thing. And you can lose your mind, can't you, when you're doing something fun? You can forget how long you've been doing it and then go, oh, wow, or my leg just fell asleep, you know? So this helps a lot. And I don't know if you're watching, but one of my students said she did a couple for herself and brought them in, and then all the other nurses, they were all asking for them. So these are really nice. I am protected by angels, but I feel like there's a troublemaker in the house. Oh my goodness. Valentine's Day is coming up. Should I do something for Valentine's Day, you guys, next week? Vote. Oh, I can't use my buttons. Transition. I hope I made sense. The pattern for this little elbow pillow is in my school. It's in free patterns, the topic free patterns. And if you search the school for Fabrically Speaking Live, then you'll find it. And you can watch the video on me making it, which was what season were we in? We're in season 3, so season 2, I don't call it an elbow pillow though. I call it a bolster pillow. So if you search for bolster on my YouTube channel, you'll find it. Looking for the washi tape. Now we bring the needle down, and if it advances and it goes away from that, we got to bring the needle up. Pull back. Lower that needle. Just better to not let it advance. There we go. Shorten that stitch length. So that's the one, Stephanie, is the bolster pillar. Oh my gosh. I just keep doing the wrong thing. Come on. Shorten my stitch length. I may be smart, but I don't sound it today. So down to the point. Go back. Okay, cut the thread. I used to leave the needle down for something else, so I keep doing that. And this is why I recommend, if you're going to learn binding, that you do several projects. Make a whole bunch of different little items so that you can get really good at the steps. Like make a whole bunch of pot holders. My pillow fell. I gotta do some prayers and ask for things to stay put and stop falling. Gotta say the positive, the opposite of what I don't want, right? Oh, thank you for everything staying where it belongs. It is really cute though, isn't it? It's got a button on both sides. Gotta sneeze. Gotta. Okay, I'm back. I don't know if I've ever used the batting and not sneezed. Okay, start in about 1/4 inch. So a couple stitches, go back. And come forward. Now we're going to lengthen our stitch back to about 3.5. Plant your finger, push toward the foot so it keeps you sewing straight. Make sure you're not leaning on your quilt, which I was. It's off the edge of the table. It's easy to lean when your elbow's down on your pillow. So about 4 inches, plant your finger, push toward the foot. Should I add elbow to the description in that pattern or in that video? It's your elbow. I made one for my son and he's like, it's a little bit too high for a mouse pad, but to put under your hand to reduce the chance of carpal tunnel syndrome. So this one is significantly shorter, like half the size. And this one is good for your wrist. So I got elbow pad and I got a wrist pad. And then I made him a bolster pillow for his lower back so that he stops hurting himself. Gotta sneeze again. And no, I'm not allergic to the batting. Bamboo is a hypoallergenic product. But pieces of it fly in the air. Looking for the washi tape. There. Now I stopped right in this right spot. It's the last corner, that's why. Shorten the stitch length. Gotta sneeze again. Entertaining. So if you I shorten the stitch length, go off and back up again, and then I cut my thread. So you can see that stitching line goes diagonally to the point, and then you put your presser down and you can just flip your batting up. And you just got to remember that it's all about it being straight along the edge of that edge and this edge, like a little square. And then to press. If you forgot to press, you could use an iron on all your corners before flipping it to the other side. I need water. Did I not bring it in? Of course not. So back and then come forward and lengthen the stitch length. I can't use the top camera and put the music on. Well, welcome, Eve. Was it a good Zoom meeting? Was it a fun one? I need water, you guys. I usually like to give you something cute to look at. I'm gonna do this. I'll be right back. I can't even trust doing anything else other than that. Sorry for walking in front of the camera. I'll be right back with some water. I love you, puppy. Chase is being such a good dog. Oh, I did bring my water in. I found it in another spot. These are my water bottles. I painted them with nail polish. This one's my favorite. Fun stuff though. Bought them at Costco really cheap. Now I have 48 ounces to drink here. I promise it's not wine. The swim meeting is having trouble. A lot of people are having trouble with their internet stuff. I noticed on things I watch. But these are weird, unrelated. Like the cameras have nothing to do with the internet. As long as you guys are willing to watch the struggle, I'm willing to struggle with you watching. Okay. I went from sneezing to coughing, so I'm like, all right, I guess it's time. This is when you have to be careful because you need to stop and have that 9 inches gap between the two ends. So just in case, because, you know, it's been an interesting day. That's my ends clips. And these are just little photo clips you can get in the crafting department or the photo where people, what is it? Photo album? What's that called? Scrapbooking. Scrapbooking area. You can tell I don't do a lot of that. I think about it. One day, I'll probably get into scrapbooking. I need a grandchild first. Okay, now I'm going to go back and forward and back. Yay. Well, thank you for telling me that, Deb. All right, so this is going to be interesting because I usually use the camera that's not working. And what's frustrating is the camera's working just fine, but it just won't. I'm not even going to try to figure it out. All right, so now one of the things that people get scared about is the cutting at the end. And I messed this up once, so I got to be slow. You didn't see a mug rug like the snowman mug rug in Etsy. I don't know. If you didn't see it, then you'll be the only one. You can make more money. If you can get fast at the mug rugs. My mug rug is a complicated pattern, though. I mean, you haven't done it yet, right? Or did you? And I'm not saying it's complicated. It's just there's steps in it that challenge you. You use every one of my products except for the sequin ribbon foot in the snowman mug rug. So do you guys know the trick? Do you know the trick? Do you know how to know when to cut off your excess? Do you know how to get them to miter? Get these fabrics to miter? How big is your batting or your binding? How wide is it? It's 2.5 inches wide, correct? So we want this to overlap 2.5 inches. It's so easy. It's not easy at all. And I generally will go, okay, just in case I'm not remembering right, I'm just going to like chop off and leave myself a little extra just in case. Use your shears, not your thread scissors. Okay. And I'm like, ooh, would that make a nice... It'd be perfect for making a casing to hang your artwork on the wall if you don't want to use it as a pad for a table. So we're going to open this up, and this is held together by our liquid-based basting glue. For those of you who arrived late. I can't use my buttons. Okay, here we go. So we can pull it apart because it's not sewn, it's just glued together. Maybe this will be a good camera. And you're going to take this quilt area and smush it. Kind of bring it back on itself. You can clip it so that it stays out of your way. These clips are able to do that. The magic clips are too small. I have one magic clip to show you. I mean, you might be able to do it, but it's significantly smaller. It hurts your hands to use these. These are easy on your hands. It's like a big mouth. So that could probably get 2 more layers in there. And the difference in size is quite, it's like this one had a baby. So 1 3/4 inches is the piping, the faux piping, and 1.5 for the other. Now the reason we're doing that is because when you go to sew a piece of binding and you only have a fat quarter and you want to use your fat quarter, and that is what the yellow is a fat quarter that I had, and I still have this much left of it. So it was small. They were short, not really long pieces. So you have to bring them together and create and cut lots of pieces and then join them all together to make a long strip. And you don't want to have a straight seam allowance because it's like a light shining on that seam allowance, especially if you have a pattern. It really shows up if you have a pattern. In other words, a fabric like this versus a solid. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's worse with a solid. I don't know. It's not as easy for the foot either to go over a straight seam as it is to go over a diagonal seam. So if these were two smaller pieces, you take and put your right sides together. It's like going back in time. I have to use my mouse instead of my buttons. That's what I updated, was my button thing. So it is related to the cameras. So right sides together, and then you just go like that. You draw a line from corner to corner and sew across. And then when you're done, you end up with a diagonal or mitered seam that joins them together. We have to do the same thing on the batting or the binding now. Sorry, I can't use the other camera. So I bunched up the quilt itself so that I can take these in my hands and bring them right sides together. And I'm going to line up my seam allowances so that they're spot on. Spin it. I didn't need to do that, so forget the spot on seam allowance lining up. And this is the part that a lot of people get confused about, is when you have all this quilt that's right there, can't really get your fabrics to lay flat. But that's in essence what you're doing. You're just doing exactly what you do to join for making a longer binding. And now we're going to draw from this corner to that corner a line. But in order to make it really good, so I don't have to worry about messing up, I am going to use the basting glue, because why would we not at this point? This is the most challenging join we have. Doesn't take that long to dry, and you can use an iron to speed up the time. What'd you watch 4 times? Oh, I need my elbow pad, my elbow pillow, my bolster. And what you may not be realizing is I'm right at a join. See? Much easier because the join is laying flat rather than having a 1/4 inch seam allowance going across there. And now I'm going to go on this side. And then you would take it to your iron to dry. I don't want to turn my iron on. That's the little girl in me goes, no, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to use the iron. I was destined to make the pressers. I use my foot as a third hand to hold that in place. I can tell this isn't lined up right. It's got to be square. There we go. And you have that time to make it accurate. And the thinner fabric will be easier to distort. Where's my itty bitty rulers? I put those. And if there's husbands listening, you can never have too many rulers. You can never have too many scissors. You can never have too many rotary cutters. And every sewer needs a cutter pillar. And you need all of the creative feet. I do counsel husbands and help them buy presents too. Because we kind of know what your wives have already bought too, so we can help you not buy something twice. I have a small ruler, but it's too small and it's buried. So my goal is to draw a line like that, but I'm not left-handed. So I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. Here we go. It looks weird because you have two pieces of fabric making up one binding. So this is when your brain really needs you to help it. Ugh, sorry, it's hard to do this up on the machine. I would normally show you on the cutter pillar. And the cutter pillar is my light tablet that I could see through the fabric and know that I'm square. So this is where they're joined. There we go. All right, now I need a pen. If only I already had it in my hand. And these are the iron erase pens, but it slipped. So from that corner. Ah. It doesn't want to draw on that lighter weight fabric. Okay, now I'm going to position the needle on the line. Then lower the foot and move the guide over to the needle. You could have changed the needle position as well on the machine. And what you're doing is you're positioning your needle right next to the guide wire. And it is over from the edge of the white guide. So the needle and the edge of the white guide are lined up with one another. Shorten your stitch length back down to that 1.8 or 20 stitches per inch. Now you see this is a seam that's folded over and we want to keep it folded over. Take your time. This is when you don't speed. And it didn't draw on that fabric. That was the weirdest thing. And you definitely secure the beginning and the ends of your stitches. Now we open, and before you cut anything, ta-da! Except for I didn't cut it. I forgot to cut it. Oh my gosh, what an embarrassing day. Holy moly. So remember I said that you want the overlap to be the width of your, and then I was afraid to cut it, so I left it long. Don't do that. So now I have to rip out this stitching. This is the second time I needed my seam ripper this week. Thank you for laughing at me. Are you saying that you have to write with your left hand now, Ayako? It's amazing what we can do. And the octahoops help you learn or wire your brain a little bit different. So if you have a stroke or you lose the ability to use one hand, if you use the octahoops and you use the opposite hand, the brain likes it. I don't know. It's interesting. I just want to rip the stitches out. I secured the beginning and the end. Come on. Oh well, this is human. This is live. Are you using the octaves, Sayako? Is that what you're saying? When you write with your left hand, I can write. Maybe if I can get this binding done, I'll show you. I've actually been able to write my name with my left hand using the octahoops, but I can't on paper. I mean, I don't write well on paper to begin with. I'm like a doctor. My writing is terrible. Oh, my assistant who doesn't want to work anymore, Michelle, she has the most beautiful writing, and I would just go, please write this for me. So people think that my writing is that pretty. All right, here we go. She would also giggle, and no one could stop laughing when she laughed. Okay, so the overlap is 2.5 inches. That's all. Oh, this is because I don't have that top camera. My brain is malfunctioning. Gotta move this thing. All right, here we go. It's really quite fun to learn this when someone can teach you well. I'm just going to chop that off. There. So basically what you want is you want your binding to overlap the size of the binding you're using. So if you're using a 4-inch binding, you want your overlap to be 4 inches. Since this is a 2.5-inch binding, I want my binding to overlap 2.5 inches. Can't use the button. It's like we've regressed here to old school before the button. I feel like writing them and going, you messed up my show today. Okay, so you see the end of the binding there, and you got a 2.5 inches. So right there is where I want to cut. Okay, let's see. Sewing machines are so noisy when you rest your hands on them. There we go. Then I go up here. So we're double checking both top and bottom of that because we don't have like an L ruler. And now we just go, oh, please, God, let it be right. And now you have the ability to join them together. I'm going to do the whole thing all over again. I thought that was a little too easy. I had more room to manipulate the fabric than I'm used to. So once again, we fold the quilt and make it smaller so that we have more room to work. I used the button and it worked. It's like, thank you, God. Clip it so it's out of your way. Woohoo! It's so funny because I was watching the truckers in Canada on my YouTube today, and my dogs were looking at me, and I realized it's because it sounds like a whole bunch of wolves howling, like everyone's going woo, and they're honking their horns. We are animals. Okay, so I cut that, and I need to sew the seam because undoing. What's working? I'm not working. Okay, well, I know you guys like it when I mess up, so you can relate. This is why I created the step-by-step quilt binding tutorial, so you can be slow about it. So I think you can get why I did that. These are two fabrics. I normally wouldn't have that issue, but because they're two fabrics joined together, when I cut the fabric, it cut the stitching line and it made it weak. Ugh, I mess it up. God. Oh my goodness. The lighter fabric on top will prevent you from doing things like that. This isn't about me teaching you everything you can do wrong, but apparently it is today. How to fix everything that you could possibly do wrong. Hi, Linda from Texas. Is this my worst video, you guys? How many mistakes will Claire make today? I've already cut it, so I have to be careful. I need my glasses. I can't see. There they are. I was going to get all... Where are my glasses? Oh, it's amazing, the difference. It's Saturday. I'll tell you what, I am tired on Saturdays now. After the show on Thursday, I sit down and then I sleep for a couple hours. So I try to stay awake, but... Bye, Deb. Sorry that I'm taking so eternally long for this. I really thought this would be an hour and a half. I have no excuse to not continue because it's Saturday and I have nowhere to go. I really want to finish this anyway and do some more bees. Ugh. Darn thread's too strong. And this is the Invisifil 100 weight poly. You never want to rip on a diagonal seam because the fabric has bias. In other words, don't pull seams apart when they're on the diagonal, or you're likely to just cut it open. There we go. If I didn't hate the iron so much. I'm doing it. It needs to be tightened up a little bit. You're learning so much by all my mistakes. Mercury in retrograde was supposed to be over on the 25th, I thought. Apparently, whoever said that was wrong. I believe you that it's not over. This has definitely been the weirdest week. If you don't believe it's a thing, I think it's a thing. I've never been so convinced. All right, Claire, what are you going to do? Turn the iron on? This is so easy. I'm making it look so difficult. It's just one of those fidgety things, and if the top camera were working, I would be handling it different. Boy, I don't like getting my fingers that close to an iron. I'm shooting steam through it so that it'll shrink that fabric back up again. Got too stretched out. I stayed up late. I was literally awake at 3:30 in the morning. I finally got into my YouTube and looked for put me to sleep stuff. I was super excited to do this today because I had set everything up and it looked like everything was going to go so smooth. All right, lightest fabric on top. Do that 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's important that it is. Come on. I'll let you look when it matters. This is just me sewing those two fabrics back together. All right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're usually pretty good here. It's just I was making it so I could notify you guys well in advance because people were like complaining. And I was trying to, what's different is I'm trying to stream to more than one location. Once I get Facebook and YouTube down, oh my gosh, then I'm going to be streaming to even more locations. Figure I'll only punish a few of you in the beginning. So these two fabrics, after you cut them, immediately like go over the seam. Be a good rule of thumb so they don't come apart on you. Because once you cut across that, you're cutting the seam allowance, if that makes any sense. So back to this. What you're doing is the exact same thing you're doing when you're joining two fabrics together to make a miter, to make a mitered seam. You got to bring right sides together and then you shift it like that. Then you draw across and then you stitch across, and then when you open it up you'll have a continuous piece. Same steps. So your brain isn't going to like this. First off, if it's cut the right length, you can't move it at all. So that's why you get your quilt out of the way by kind of folding it up. So we're in essence making the quilt smaller just till we sew these together. Make sure you don't flip them around. So you got right sides together. And then you shift it just the same way. Make that square. Now it's more like it because it's even harder to handle. So it's a little bit fisnickety because you don't have a lot of space for your fingers. I think that's a bad spot for the clip. We'll move you over here. And you basically want to make that square. This would be a little easier if I had a little more room, so I probably didn't leave myself 9 inches. I have a pin in my hand. Oh my goodness, that's unusual for Claire. Where's the glue? There it is. Okay. I just don't want it to move on me. I want this to dry before I sew it. Why do I hesitate to use pins so much is because they damage your fabric. They don't make them ballpoint. They shift the fabric frequently. And I can honestly say that I could probably count, I barely ever am successful at using pins without cutting myself on them. Do any of you have that issue? Pins are little sharp instruments that I don't expect to be in the fabric. I guess if I use them more, I would be more cognizant that they're in there. All right, I would normally wait for this to dry, but I'm losing my patience with myself. Actually, I need to draw the line. So I'm just gonna, you've already seen me do this, and if the top camera was working, I'm just gonna try it. Wouldn't it be cool? No, it's still asleep. So weird. It's just bizarre. Come on, you. Click mouse, mousey click. Can you hear the mouse clicks? No, it's still just not gonna work. Fine, be that way. Got to draw the line that I'm going to sew on. Especially important when you have such a tight amount of space to work on. Looking for my rulers. You too have been victimized by your pins. They're like little ninjas hiding in your quilt or your garment. Finding the corners. Need a pen. Maybe this one will write on the... It does. Good. Yay. Something worked, you guys. Take a deep breath in and release the stress and smile. Put your glasses on, and I have 2 pin lids and a glue lid here, and no pen and no glue. Gonna need this in a second. Oh, the button worked. Oh, thank you, God. Okay. So secure that corner. Follow your line. Keep your yellow fabric folded over. Secure the end. And then you pull it and you're like, ta-da! And now it's flat. Do you guys go ta-da ever? The glue is a godsend, I'll tell you what. Especially the older I get, and I was going to actually talk about your hands because I was kind of letting mine go, and I do some exercises to keep them nimble for quilting. So Amy, don't let me forget before I quilt, because I am going to do a little quilting after this. If you guys want to hang around, you don't have to. So I don't know if you can see how kind of sloppy this looks, and it's kind of stretched out of shape. It actually appears a little bit too big to lay flat. So we're going to steam and spray starch that. Spray starch is too far. Oh, this is the one that's almost gone. Of course it is. I need to meditate today. Of course, I should use it all the way up. I don't like the sound of something almost gone. You're going through physical therapy for your hands? Well, I've been doing certain things for my entire career. I am going to cut away some of this bulk because I joined it at a join. Oh God, Claire, be more careful. Think more. Okay. I was just so quick to cut that. I need to be more mindful of my limitations today. Using steam and the spray starch. And I know that a lot of times talk about not using steam because it can stretch your fabric out. Well, it also can shrink it right back up again. Now look at that. See how it's perfect and ready to be stitched. All nice and flat and secured to the quilt. As long as you guys don't mind, I'm having a great time. Spending time with you is always very special to me. Okay, so now I'm going to go beyond my stitching line. Whoopsie. What stitch am I on? It's not quite a 1/4 inch right here. So I'm going back to where it was and starting there. Longer stitch length. I'm on a 3. What did I just do? Did something wonky. Push toward the foot, and why isn't it feeding? It's doing that again. Well, there's going to be a lot of stitching right there. Oh, that thread. It was stuck on the foot. I'm sorry if my head was in your way. I got a microphone and a light in my way, and I'm a little out of it. My foot control sliding away. Of course it is. And I don't have my elbow bolster under my elbow. In reverse. This technique is actually easier than the other binding technique. It may not seem like it right now because of how long it's taken me. But it is because of how you finish it off. So now you're going to go like this. And you have this perfect little miter on the back. And before I go to the iron, I want to make sure that I push, and I'm going to do this off the machine in a minute, but just so that you know what I'm doing. Pushing at a diagonal using the presser first so that I have a really good pushing away from the back of the quilt. And then we're going to come around here and we're going to line up the binding like this and use that stitching line to help guide us. And you can glue, or in this case, because you're just using a straight stitch and going along the edge of that, I would glue normally. But we're not ready yet. Before we do that, we go like this and we bunch up the quilt. More bunching up. Oh yeah, okay. Told you I'd remember what the tape is for. The second part I had to sew to think. Washi tape, where are you? Well, it got tangled up with my measuring tape. Okay, so what you want to do is sew a 1/4 inch diagonally at this fold right here. And you want to make sure that fold is really nice and accurate. And the guide is a 1/4 inch away from your needle, correct? So if you don't have the satin edge foot, this is what you would use to help you to know to do a 1/4 inch. We're going to go back to a short stitch length. We want to go across. Oh, the guide went into the hole. That's never happened before. Something new to experience, of course. So see what we've done? Now when we bring this over to the top, you have a sewing machine stitched mitered corner on the top. You never seen this? You can also trim a little bit of that away. I'm always a little nervous to do that though. But you see that little loop that we have there? I'm getting out my Appliquick tool. The one with the spatula shape. I put them in a safe place so I don't stab myself. Where are they? Where are you? Oh, come on, Claire. Where'd you put them? They're in here. I just organized. Because I reached in once and stabbed myself with them. So I'm like, all right, I need to put these safe. And now I can't find them. Oh, it's right there. Oh my goodness. I love it when you guys go, wow, I learned something new. This is one of the best things you can ever learn that's new. Not having to hand sew your binding. So these are the Appliquick tools. Actually, I have two of the same one. Okay, so one of the tools has a flat spatula shape to it, and you put that inside of here. And that enables you to make it an absolutely perfect point. That's so cute, Charlene. You pointed an arrow to yourself. So did you guys see that, or do you need me to show it again? Want me to do that 3 more times? That's fine, because I have to do it 3 more times. So now you know why I said to press that really good before, because you want to know where it's going to be folded. And you can fold it a little more. Make sure you're lined up. So here's my philosophy. If you can sew something with a hand sewing needle, that means you can do it with a sewing machine needle. I have taken the lining out of jackets and sewn them back in by machine. And you can't tell. These are some of the tricks you'll learn in the Creative Feet Sewing Extensive as soon as I get that going. Of 1/4 inch distance away from the corner at the diagonal. This is your miter that you normally sew by hand, being sewn by machine. Short stitch length, going over it more than once, it'll never spread apart. And this is why we go back to front. So once again, we're going to push this in, find that little pocket, poke a tool in like that, and it brings it right out to a perfect miter. And you have a perfect miter on the back because we sewed it that way. Have to flatten it out with the tool. Don't use this end. Use the wrong end. I just poked a hole in mine. I have another tool that I've used before, but I broke it. So what we're trying to do is smooth out the miter on both. And you may find that you want to cut those corners to make them easier. This is why you have to cut across the grain and not cut with the grain. So you have enough stretch to go around your mitered corner. This is the one spot where you'll clip it and then you'll glue. You'll glue so that that is perfectly square on your corner. People do hand sew bindings. Are you kidding? I'm sorry. I don't mean to say it like that. But it's... I know there's somebody in here who hand sews when they listen to me. And she's always hand sewing. I'm not sure what she's doing, but a lot of people hand sew because they want to not see any stitching when you're finished. So that's when I came up with this technique so that you don't have to hand sew. The Linus Quilt Project is a donation project for donating blankets for premature babies and other people in need. And I developed a technique for sewing your back as you're binding and not having to do it by machine or by hand. And they came up and asked me to try to figure out a way of doing the flat fold binding all by machine, because people were donating hundreds of quilts a year without any binding. And they were having to sew the binding on after the quilt was already quilted. So that's what you're seeing here is I am binding first. Even though I did some quilting, I definitely have more quilting to do on this. Once again, flip it out, find the pocket. Use the correct side of this, the spatula side, and push it in. We are close to sold out of these, by the way, the Applique tools, and they're good. They would help you do needle turn applique. We're about to place an order, but if you've been on the fence about getting these, the other end can be used as a stylus as well. So there's lots of uses for these. You can get this under there. So if I'm not using this, I'm using my presser. These are the tools that and every once in a while I use a seam ripper. Thank goodness. Thank God I don't have to use a seam ripper all the time. And here we go. Pretty cool though, huh? That's just, knowing the math. Sewing is just math. Just trying to get everything to fit together. Don't use the pointy end. This allows you to kind of flatten everything out in there, make it all nice and neat and tidy. Then you go into there. Everything's easier when I can do it so I can see it. But that's how I like my corners to look. Is that how you like your corners to look? If it is, give me a thumbs up. The more activity you guys do in the chat, the more YouTube and Facebook think you're having a good time. Now we got to take and fold this over. And you want to exceed the stitching line that you used to sew it to the front. And you could just sew with a straight stitch in the ditch and not use the glue, but using the glue is a more accurate process. But the most important aspect is that pressing with the presser, going like this all the way around. My iron is calling. I am going to use the iron here in a minute. Why are you still beeping? Oh no, it's not. I thought it... I can hear myself after I say something, and so I turned the iron. I stopped its alarm, and then I heard it in my ear, so I thought it started again. Thank you, guys. So this part is a risk. You have a risk of burning your fingers when doing something like this, and you want to make sure it's really flat. Isn't that just striking together? Ugh, I love these fabrics. I'm going to enjoy this in my living room. And it's going to cover up all the old watermarks on this table that one day I will refinish. Because I like doing that. Do you guys like finishing fabric? What is Charlene going to love? I missed it. Oh, you just got your basting glue. It's trending this week. We definitely went through a lot of glue this week. People were buying 2 bottles. Know that it does last a long time. But I know one thing, I would never want to be without it. Or my presser. Can't even imagine. I can't imagine. I used to hurt myself. Speaking of our hands, using your finger to press causes joint damage in your thumb. And the presser is ergonomic. It has two angles to this end. And you use this end to press. Notice it doesn't have a rounded bottom. People have them and they rub like that. And that puts your hand in a different posture. You want your hand resting so your elbows are down, and then you rub like you're erasing. But it doesn't hurt because there's no sharp edges to hinder or hurt your fingers. Boy, my fingers are dry. I need some lotion. Do any of you have any questions so far? I think I'm going to quit. I'm just kidding. I'm not quitting until this binding is stitched on. It's almost done. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use clips instead of gluing, only because time. And it's just for me. It's just going to sit in my, there's going to be a lamp on it, and no one's going to be looking at my binding. They're all going to be focused on this surface. But the satin edge foot's going to eliminate any chance of me not sewing straight. So this is when you can use a matching thread or a invisible thread in your bobbin. And if I do traditional binding, I do use invisible thread in the needle and the bobbin. But this is the fastest binding technique. It really is when you're not struggling like I was. Some of you may not know that you can use both sides of the guide. When I do binding, because the quilt is too big to shove all inside of here when putting the binding on, I use the other side of the guide. So I'm moving my guide over, and what I want to do is I want to line up my needle so that it's right beside the colored fabric. So I'm going to stitch in a ditch right there. And you just make sure that you're covering the stitching line that's under there. Center needle position. Well, today, if you want to learn my struggles, today was the day. Now I'm moving my needle over even further so I can get right in the ditch. And I have yellow thread in the needle and the bobbin, so you'll be able to see. Got my elbow bolster in position, so you guys don't have to worry about my elbows. And then my finger goes here, and I push towards the inside of the guide to stay right in the ditch. Well, I'm definitely having a struggling week, but generally this foot eliminates a lot of the struggles. Mostly it's just the construction, which step you do first, that kind of stuff that my brain, if I'm tired, tends to forget. That's why I like to write step-by-step patterns for you guys, so you don't have to try to remember. I'm not sure how many hours sleep I got last night. I really think every once in a while my brain becomes a 2-year-old. And it goes, I don't want to go to bed. I want to stay up. It's Friday. In fact, when I traveled, oh God, it was so hard to go to sleep. I really think it was something about when I was a child and we'd go stay in hotels. But I needed my sleep. So looking always about 4 inches ahead, making sure everything's neat and tidy. You can hear the sound of that going through. You want a 90-14 needle when doing binding. It's a lot of thread that or layers that it's going to cut, especially at the corner. So slow. Lower the needle, lift, spin it around. Isn't that beautiful? And here I didn't go far enough, so I'm seeing some of the stitching. Ah. Now it's all wonky. I can't possibly sew if it's all wonky like that. Where'd all that batting go? Oh, that's not big enough. Come on. Where'd you go? So I had these scraps. I'm just going to fold it. And then you put it under the foot. And it becomes like a crutch for it. Sometimes you put it on the back. And it levels the foot off. Can also increase your stitch length on the corners, but I tend to forget to bring it back down again. Zoom, zoom. This is when I should take a picture with my phone. Isn't it amazing? I think it's so cool. The big fabric is gone. All it is this little sliver. If this were glued, I would not be having to stop as much. So now when I say you can bind first and quilt second, know that it's definitely advisable to quilt first and bind second, because especially if you're new to using the octahoops. And partly the reason you can do that is because of the octahoops and how they don't push the fabric because we're not using a foot. But when you get really close to the binding with the hoops, it is a little challenging. It's more of an advanced technique. But I'll show you a little bit because I want to quilt. I want to quilt. It's kind of like coloring. I get to color. It's not dinner. This is a better time of day for me to go live. That pin is, something's magnetized. Wow, look at that. Oh, it's the pin because I keep it on a one of those magnetic pin cushions. Okay, I didn't flatten this corner out. Definitely want to do that before you get it under the foot. I'm not in the pouch or in the pocket. See how it's important to get into that pocket. So do you guys want to want me to do something for Valentine's Day or not? Last year I did something, but last year I had you guys take your candy box, your heart-shaped candy box, and make it into a storage box with a pin cushion on top. And then on the back you have a straight stitch, which is fine. It's on the back and it's a straight stitch, so it looks like just another stitch. You know, I use scraps for this, but I really want to make one that's cute and that's always where I want it. Okay, so Bonnie is late. I'm just giving you a hard time. This is what it's like. So the yellow is the piping, the faux piping. And when you make a piece of binding by joining two pieces lengthwise, the one that ends up showing the most, you cut narrower at 1.5. And the one that ends up teeny tiny on the top, the piping, you cut larger or wider at 1 3/4 inches. You sew the two together, you lose a 1/2 inch from the seam allowance. And then you end up with a faux piping binding. Isn't that cool? Nothing's ever where I want it. I'm not going to deny it, Amy. I try. I organize. Here we're coming up on a miter. We've had a lot of technical difficulties today. Did I push this one out? I did. Oop, I didn't do the back. This is your chance to do it. You don't want to put it off. If you don't push your miter out on the back and the top, it will be in. I mean, you might be able to pull it out with tweezers. Got to get in the little pouch. I know that you can rewind this video if you're going, what pouch? I've never had a pouch when I put binding on. This is how to sew binding on by machine. Where is it? I don't care. It's just going to sit on the table. No one's going to see it. Yes, you do care. Do you guys ever do that? Oh, I can just let that go. No, I can't. The bee needs another bee. Do you guys agree? Can overdo that though. That's a cute element. Coming up to the corner, lower the needle in the corner. I have a little song playing in my head. Because unlike you guys listening to me talk, I only hear me in my head. Just stay on for me. Thank you. Gonna press in a minute. Take the crutch. Put it behind the foot to level it off. Push toward the guide on this side. Partly why I was able to do this without gluing and have it not pucker is because of all that spray starching. I just think it's such a beautiful binding for wall hangings. It's more of a frame having that additional fabric in there, don't you think? Whoopsie. A little too fast there. Jig, designed by my friend Levita. She lives in South Dakota. I know because I've been to North Dakota, I haven't been to South Dakota. And she goes, come to South Dakota, you can come stay with me. We both, I think I was already out for a while. I think her product came out a few years after the Creative Feet. Now she has a bigger product. Not sure if she still calls it a jig or she calls it the big jig or something. And it has a slot. I have a jig or two in my drawer somewhere. I tend to use my packs of needles and this. This is a different use because we're leveling off my foot. It's not leveling off any foot. Oh, I'd show you on the top camera, but not a pucker to be found. Yay! I'm going to press it a little and spray starch again and then do some quilting. And then I'm going to stop and we will see each other on Thursday. I really like it. I think it's fun. Nice to have something different and have it accentuate the applique so well. So I guess I'll put the big camera on. Give you me to look at since I don't have the top camera. I'm excited. It's like I'm not stopping until this is done because of the method that I'm using for quilting. Not quilting the whole thing. Shouldn't take as long. I always think that, and then I end up quilting too detailed. Oh, talk about the hands. Okay. So all your life, you're holding things, picking up, holding an iron, holding your steering wheel, picking up your purse, opening jars, opening doors. A lot of squeezing. And we tend not to open our hands enough. And this is partly what causes hand issues. Another thing that causes hand issues is not stopping doing something when your hands hurt. And you may have been told, oh, push through the pain. There's no pain, no gain without pain. And it's just like some of the worst advice we can be given. So when you feel pain, your brain is sending you a signal because your brain is the only reason you feel pain. I really need to clean the iron. I just shot a bunch of icky stuff out of my iron. Sorry, I got distracted by that. Trying to think of what to quilt while thinking about your hands. I apparently can't do both at the same time. All right, what should I quilt? I wish I could show you the top view. No. Okay, so a long time ago, we used to have irons and they would require distilled water. It can ruin an iron now. So you're supposed to just use tap water. I guess the distilled water can cause rusting in your iron. I don't know. But they tell you not to do that anymore. And you just have to add salt to some. And still do in some. Now, if you have an iron that's older and it tells you to use it, use it. Like if you have a steamer, they have like a little place to put salt to increase the steam. But for your traditional iron, read the directions, and generally they will say to use just tap water. Okay, so in the morning before I rise, I lay there and I have my headboard above me, and I put my hands, and I want you to not do anything till I talk a little bit, because you can hurt yourself doing these exercises for your hands. You should be able to lay your hand flat. If you can't lay your hand flat, if your hand arches, your tendons have shortened and they're pulling your fingers closed. And a lot of people will actually sleep with their hands fisted. And the closer we get to death, the tighter our hands tend to be. But a lot of this can be gradually reversed. You don't want to do this really fast, but you should also be able to lift your elbows up by sides like this and have the palms closed. So before I get out of bed, I just very slowly just kind of push my fingers against the headboard and meditate and focus on these tendons and kind of tell them to relax. And also throughout the day, I will do this and kind of you feel where you're feeling strain. If you can't get your hands all the way together, don't force it, because you can tear your tendons. Just like trying to do the splits with your legs and you haven't done that since you were a child, you're likely to sprain or tear a muscle or a tendon. So the goal is to be able to do this. Make sure your hands are flat when you lay down. If they're not, you have tightening and shortening of your tendons and muscles across the underside, which can cause or lead to carpal tunnel syndrome. So just want to take time for yourself, and springing your fingers like that and keeping the palms apart is a good place to start. You just kind of just feel the muscles and calmly, you want good music that you're playing at the same time. But this is the kind of stuff I will do before I quilt, because we're going to hold on to the pen, but it's not as hard as holding on to a pen. Another thing is, as an artist, I tend to put my pinky down and paint a lot, which I try to push that pinky back to give it a break. You're a fifth sleeper. So if you're a fifth sleeper, you might want to take your get a bolster pillow. I used to do that. So I have long round pillows and I put my hand over it. And before you go to sleep, say out loud, if I clench my fist, wake me up. And so if you speak out loud, your brain hears you and it will remind you. And sometimes I'm woken up by the cutest things, like the sound of a bird chirping in my head, or my dog starts to snore, something like that. But maybe I need to make one of these that connects to your wrist, because that would be perfect. Keep your fingers apart and relaxed. This would be a good sleeper pillow. So we want to don't sleep with too many pillows behind your back. Your neck is supposed to be arched this way, so you want to have a pillow that goes here but not here. If you have a pillow at the crown of your head, you're forcing your head forward. Another thing that I do is put my hands behind my back. And Clotilda was one that used to show off. She could take her arms and put them behind her back and go like this behind her back. If you go on my YouTube channel and go to A Blast from the Past playlist, you'll see a video with me and Clotilda, if you don't know who she is. She was an amazing woman and an inventor as well as an educator. So let's see. This is partly why I always want you to put your elbows down. If you are sewing and your elbows are up, you'll start to feel a burning between your shoulder blades. And remember, you do not feel pain unless your brain tells you and it's warning you to stop. Stop doing what you're doing, because your body's very lazy. It doesn't want to have to hold your arms up. So if your muscles and tendons have to work, your brain will signal to your body to lock the joint in a locked position, so you don't have to hold yourself in that position. That is why a lot of people end up walking around like this. They'll push through the pain doing this kind of thing. So elbows on pads, get those muscles to relax. Talk to yourself. Kind of, you're an athlete and you want to be able to sew for as long as possible. This is partly why I don't recommend hand sewing if you can avoid it. And I know some people love it. However, holding something really small between your fingers, a lot of people end up with deformed fingers from doing that for a long period of time. So just think, anytime you feel pain, stop and think, how can I sit differently so that I'm not feeling pain? A really, really common thing that sewers do is they don't sit centered with the needle, kind of sitting off to the side and lean the whole time they're sewing, and that causes problems with your back. So not having a cushion that's too big for your seat. If your cushion is too big on your seat, you may be wobbling and using lower back muscles and tendons that tend to get strained, and then your body does what? It tries to lock the vertebrae in your lower back in that position. You sleep on your back with a travel pillow under your neck? That's good. A lot of people can't sleep on their back because they snore, and so my side is better for me, but I can sleep on all sides now, but I do exercises for my neck as well. What else? This is something, and I do have some nursing background, so I worked in convalescent for about 6 years. One of the things that you want to watch out for is your cognitive, your mind's, your brain's wellness. So something that I do on a regular basis is I tap the fingers together like this. and kind of look at how you're doing it. You could even videotape yourself doing it, and then you do this on a regular basis. If suddenly you can't do that, something has changed, and you want to get in and get seen. Kind of a sad thing to talk about. When I would do a show, I would talk about this stuff, and I would say you're supposed to sit up straight, shoulders back. You're not supposed to be leaning forward. Your shoulders aren't supposed to be in. They're supposed to be back. When I broke my shoulder, I was getting x-rayed, and she goes, "Why are you standing so straight?" And I go, "I'm just standing normal." And she goes, but your shoulders are back and you're standing so straight." She thought it was wrong. I go, "This is just proper posture." And she goes, "Well, I barely ever see anyone stand like that." So it's really sad, and it has to do with our holding our phones, reading, doing a lot of things with our hands forward and not leaning. So I can recommend sitting in a folding chair, a really stable chair, and just one that's lower than your shoulders, and just kind of laying back and letting your arms dangle. Try to get all the muscles to relax, and you'll realize that you're tense. Some of you may be sitting with your shoulders up right now watching me, and you're home. So elbows down, shoulders relaxed, shake it out, loosen it up, communicate with your body. And I'm reminded that I'm giving this away, this beautiful antique gold, or it's like a rose gold sewing machine rhinestoned pendant. I will announce the winner in the school. You do tapping in the mirror. Good. Well, there you go. So having this background helps, and I'm going to quilt. That help? If you find yourself clenching your teeth, you need to figure out how to stop doing that as well. Letting your mouth hang open. Another thing you can do is actually lay on the bed with your head hanging off and take your fingers in your mouth and kind of pull down on your lower jaw slowly to get the jaw muscle to loosen up a little bit. And take your knuckles into your jaw and just squeeze, just push in, but not too hard, not too fast. Remember, if you haven't done these things, your body is going to go, "What's she doing?" And it's all about, like when you go to the chiropractor, a lot of times people go to the chiropractor and they never stay unstuck. They have to keep going back for the same injury because the muscles and tendons on that side of the body is going to pull right back because you haven't fixed the problem. And that's your posture, how you're sitting or standing, or something you do a lot. And if you do a lot of mouse, you're going to definitely have issues. So remember the bolster, make one shorter. I gave you a bunch of different sizes in the pattern. So use the smallest one and breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. I do this breathing where you breathe in, you breathe out, and let all your air out of your lungs. It's Olympic breathing. And try to fill your lungs all the way up and let it all the way out. And these are good things to do every morning before you start your day. All right, enough of that. I'm looking for the thing to unscrew my foot. I think it was on the floor. It is. I knew where it was, Amy. Okay. And it goes on this where your thread normally goes, but I don't put thread on the machine. I put the thread on the thread dispenser. If any of you have the thread dispenser and love it, you can share that in the feed. It stops a lot of the skipping, looping, shredding, breaking thread. I'm going to take the yellow thread out of the bobbin because I want this whole quilt to look the same on the back. And right now, there's only a couple spots where I had issues, and that was human error. Yeah, there's also this thing where you take your head and you rest your head on the palm of your hand and you push against your palm, and you're pushing your head against your palm and your palm against your head, and it causes a release in the neck. But be slow, be slow. You can hurt yourself just like that by going too fast. It's a slow rejuvenation, but honestly, you should be doing this every day, just until you have the ability to lay your hands flat. Range of motion is the most important thing for longevity and to have enjoyment for your duration. Looking for my bobbins. They're where they belong. In my container, which is in here. Is it? Yeah, that's the yellow one. The yellow one goes there. And now I'm using, oh, my gray one isn't there. Oh, I know where it is. It's in the other machine. But it came with 2 gray bobbins, so I'll just grab another one. It takes so long to use one of these bobbins up. It's amazing. All right, so you guys promised me you're going to take care of yourselves. Epsom salts and baths. A lot of people don't take baths because it's hard to get in and out. When I broke my shoulder, I was not able to just stand up in a bathtub and get out. So I take a towel, a large towel, and it goes out of the tub, over the arch of the tub, and into the tub. So that when you're getting out of the tub, you're holding onto the towel and your knee and feet go on the towel. So you're connected to something that's not slippery. It's a safer way to get in and out of the tub. Okay. All right, where are we at? We're going to quilt. I'm going to do another bee because they're fun. And this is the area here that people are going to see. The lamp's going to go over here. Of course, it'd be nice to have the whole thing look nice. I think it'd be really nice to have a bee right here. Yeah, do a lot of this, just sway too, loosen up those hips. Put your little elbow pad in there so you're resting. Shoulders relaxed. When you use the octahoops, you don't have to squeeze this. It's a very light hold. Think everything's supposed to be relaxed. I feel like I had a glass of wine. What would be a fun video? What did I say? Okay, elbows down, shoulders relaxed, glasses if you need them, if you can find them. If they didn't match my fabric. I have a bunch of these now. I have them everywhere I ever stop and do anything. There's a pair of readers. Okay, stop giving me that alarm. Stop looking scary when I push the button. Lower the foot, even though there is no foot. And you could even take this screw out. If you have a Bernina sewing machine, well, you don't even have that post there. So you have full view. Tell your machine you're quilting? Absolutely not. Do not tell your machine you're quilting. Leave it on standard straight stitch. I have this big thing on my table. It is in the way again. So I think a bee going like this and having the bee be up here. BB. That was a good size bee though, wasn't it? So I'm going to bring Liquid Base is the brand name of my glue, yes. All right, where's my tweezers? Simply the best tweezers in the world. And I bought so many pairs over the years. So I'm picturing, and I was thinking I should do a little loop-de-loop, shouldn't I, you guys? just to help refresh your memory, this is, don't ruin the needle. I didn't want to bring that bobbin thread back up just because I'm showing you something. Oh well. This is the idea. So on this bee, he didn't loop, but it would be kind of neat to have him have a more. This bee, he's not wandering around that much. The other bee, he's gonna go. He's gonna take a bigger. He's gonna have more fun. He's gonna do some loop-de-loops. So you picture what you want to do, and you can even practice with the pen and just kind of go. Yeah, that's the movement. See how my fingers move? My fingers move, not my arm, not my whole hand. This is what's different about the octi-hoops than any other method of quilting. So fingers are moving. And that's why you don't want to use a big hoop on the top, because your fingers need to be able to move. And this hoop, I can move to the entire inner area without lifting my hand up. The less you lift your hand up, the more accurate you are. Lower the foot, or you have no tension on the thread. Bring the needle down and back up again. If your foot is not lowered and you have no tension on the thread, you can't get your bobbin thread to come up. So if you've ever had trouble getting your bobbin thread to come up, it's probably because your foot lever is up. Make sure it's down. Here we go. Now I'm going to sew a little bit and come back to that spot. And now that's a good knot. It's not going to come out. Cut the thread. If you just stay in one spot and tie a knot, you're just going to make a bigger hole, and you're going to end up with your knot not being a knot. Oh my goodness. What color thread do I have on the top? Oh, I have the same one. Okay. And I don't have my cruise control, my speed control reduced. All right. So he's started over there. Now where is he going to go? The fabric's lifting because my feed dog, or my feed dogs are up. So I'm lowering them. It's lifting a little more than it would. Oh yeah, he's going over here. Woo. Now this bee, he's partier. This bee had tequila. Oh, I need to stop. Isn't this fun? It's a lot different than just quilting some design that repeats. And I just scoot the frames, and I'm getting close to the corner, which is where there's very little hoop holding the fabric, and this would be more advanced. That's why I would recommend that you did this. See how little I have in the hoop here? This would be something to strive toward after you've practiced a lot. Now I got to make my bee. This bee's gonna have a head. The other bee didn't. And I didn't really plot it out. And I'm gonna actually give it some lines. Meow. It needs a stinger. Should have drawn it on a piece of paper first. Now I have barely anything holding this for the antennae. Maybe another stripe. Scooting along. Who says you have to quilt just a normal pattern? What do you think, you guys? That cute? You want a bee coming to the flower? Oh, I see. You're just going to keep me sewing. Going this way? Okay, I'll have him start like in this corner and head there. Or do you want it on the flower? He won't show up there. It's not enough. That would be an applique. Ooh, just scratch the needle tip on the fabric. Did you do a flower, Charlene? Are you doing it? Are you doing the project? I love it when you guys do. I would love it even more if you guys shared in the school. Okay, I'm going to cheat and not bring the bobbin thread up because this machine really doesn't require it. Machines that are engineered originally for embroidery, you don't really have to bring your bobbin thread up. Scooting along, elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Deep breath in, relax. Think about where you're going, what you want to do. If you don't have a plan, you won't achieve it. Okay, here comes another bee. And he needs a stinger. He also needs a head. First one didn't have a head. See if I can quilt him some eyeballs. And I can because I'm moving this. Oops, sorry, is my head in the way? I'm moving my fingers, not my whole hand. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. That's my instruction to myself every time I use the hoops, even when you're not watching me. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Can't talk while I'm doing this because I'm learning and thinking and planning as I go. It takes two different parts of the brain, one to talk and teach and the other to do things you haven't done before. I can feel someone going, the one wing is bigger than the other, Claire. You're doing it wrong. Which one of you is thinking that? I really did not know that it was going to end up being a bunch of bees, but I'm sure loving it. If you live in the New Jersey area, my niece, my goddaughter, Michelle, has a location called Busy Bee Organics. And my other niece, has a secondhand store called Another Man's Treasure, one in LA and one in New Jersey. And I'm trying to think of what part of New Jersey. All right, I'm gonna do another bee. I did want to finish this, but I'm getting hungry. What time is it? 3:19. I think it's Amy. Amy just doesn't want to say it because she's always the one catching me on things. All right, so 2 bees flying away from the flower, 1 bee flying toward it, coming out of another flower. Now what? Help me. A butterfly? Just give me a challenge. How about a butterfly? Okay, let's see. What kind of butterfly? I got a sewing machine with butterflies all over it. I have to draw one before I quilt it. It's good for you to know. All right, we're gonna draw a butterfly. Okay, butterflies have a little head here, and they have this and this. Just because you draw it, I mean, you have to draw it without picking up your pen. I don't know. I think it's just a bee thing. But this is how I would quilt it if I were going to do it. I'm not going to give in this time because it's going in my living room. I really don't want butterflies on it. I can quilt it on something else. I was thinking maybe some other flowers, not all sunflowers, like some little daisies. Ants, come on. You guys are so funny. This reminds me when I was writing my novel. And my mom was constantly trying to get me to change the story the way she wanted it to go. I should stop. Come on. There you go. Just kind of testing that out. Can't just do one because then it looks like a mistake. The needle has a little bit of a burr on the tip, which is why it's lifting the fabric. And that was my fault. Flowers. We got an exclamation point. So we'll do some more of these. Flowers need leaves. I'm just doodling. That's all it is. Doodling on a quilt. Do the center first. Come over a couple stitches. Do another petal. I'm having trouble seeing because I'm too far from it and the microphone is in my line of sight. Are you guys having fun? Because I know I am. This is why you want to doodle at night, so that when you go to quilt or whatever, you can doodle whenever you want. When I no longer have the ability to function, I will sit and doodle. So that when I go to quilt, I actually can just draw on the quilt because I have an idea. All right. There's never just one bee, is there? Sewing on a Saturday with my buddies. Really got to change that needle. It's terrible. It's because I scratched it on the fabric. Why? Because there's no foot. Yeah, the super non-stick needles are the best for quilting. They just slide in and out of the fabric easier. I just realized we never stocked the 8012. Am I out of bobbin? No. I just really need to change this needle. I almost never run out of bobbin anymore. It's the Deco bobs. All right, kind of put that bee too close to the other bee. Oh well, maybe it's time to stop. The lamp's going there, around there. Could have done something like that and planned for the lamp's position and made flowers going around where the lamp goes. See, that's what happened, is I went like this, and I don't know if you can hear that. That's the sound of the needle stubbing its toe on the fabric, and it damages the needle. You want me to write on it? Oh my goodness, you guys. Maybe be kind. Definitely bad needle. I think I'm going to call it quits because I'm hungry. And it's 3:30. We started at 11. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4.5 hours. Oh my God, you guys. I'll let you know. I will take pictures and put it in the school. It's like somebody's playing with chalk on a sidewalk and they just started drawing. I think it's cool. I hope you guys enjoyed watching despite all of the issues, and that you guys will give this a go. It is a pattern in the school. You have all the information you need to make this. And if you want to have the best possible experience, use the threads we offer at Creative Feet. The Invisifill and the Polyfast and the Deco Bob were all used in conjunction with one another on this. You could just use an invisible thread in the bobbin. We also have that. And the only invisible thread I recommend is the nylon invisible thread. Polyester doesn't stretch, doesn't have memory. It breaks real easy. And if you wind it on a bobbin, it doesn't stay on the bobbin. It winds and then falls off and tangles up inside your machine. If you do use nylon thread, wind your bobbin slow or only fill the bobbin halfway. One full bobbin is the equivalent of 100 bobbins of cotton quilting thread. So you can put nylon thread in your bobbin and maybe quilt an entire queen size quilt without changing your bobbin. You're finding it difficult to find you know why? I'll tell you why. Schmetz decided to change the way they call their needles, so I need to write an addendum for you for the book. So they used to, the universal needle used to have an H on the package, and it may still have it. Let's see. But some of these may be as old as before that. When I was told by Schmetz that they did this, I went, great. I wrote a book. Now they're not named the same thing. So the universal needle is not universal to all fabrics. When this needle was invented by the original maker of the Schmetz needles, it was universal to all home sewing machines. Before he came out with this needle, there were only sharp needles, and sharp needles cut your fabric. So those of you who are as old as I am, you may have bought a garment, put it on, worn it only once, and all of the seam line just kind of shredded, or the fabric broke, and you might have felt like, oh, maybe I need to lose some weight. But that was the needle that did that. So that's why we used to sew wrong sides together, cut down one half, wrap it around, and then do another row stitching. The French seam, or also known as the felled seam, on your blue jeans, which they still use today on non-stretch blue jean fabric, because they use a blue jean needle, a sharp needle on those. So the universal needle was called the light ballpoint needle. And now they call it a rounded tip. And it's just kind of frustrating for me. I need to drink a little bit of water. I'm going to cough. So I'm going to mute. It's a sign I need to be quiet. So when you're looking at the needles, know this. Did I unmute? Yeah, okay. The universal needle has a sister now. It has a super universal needle. It has a different anatomy. But the length of the needle is what made it universal. And it didn't cut your fabric. And instead of making a really straight stitch, it kind of had a little bit, it still does. It doesn't sew a perfectly straight stitch. So instead of cutting through your fabric fibers that are vulnerable to tearing from the bias in the fabric, the universal needle pushes fibers aside, protecting your garment. And it made it so we no longer needed to use a felled seam. It also made it so we could use the overlock machine. That was right when the overlock machine released. And everyone was thrilled because they could sew with just the overlock stitch and not have to, worry about the seam shredding. It was a very exciting time in the sewing industry, and I was a part of that time. So I will create like a cheat sheet for you so you know what needle to use. It'd be great if you could mention it in the school, and then I'll comment on that, because I have a lot to remember between doing the pattern for this on the binding, the step-by-step instructions for that. Didn't you like the binding? Was it cool? I love it. So were you having trouble finding the twin needles as well? Because they used to call them, everything shifted, and then they released new needles as well, which a lot of them I don't feel you need. But once embroidery kicked off and embroidery machines came out, they had a lot of trouble with skip stitches, thread shredding. A lot of that was simply how the thread delivered to the machine, which is why a lot of the embroidery machines evolved into a similar thing to my thread dispenser, which I created because domestic sewing machines were not handling well, they just basically broke thread a lot. It was super frustrating. So the thread dispenser is the answer to a lot of the thread problems you have. I could go on, I could talk for 8 hours and not repeat myself when it comes to sewing. Should you ever have a question about what needle to use for something, you're more than welcome to ask me in the school or email us using the contact form at creativefeet.com, or you can send me a private message in the school, but I prefer you throw your question out there for everyone to see so that I can answer it and everyone gets to see it. Now, some of you are hesitant if you have trouble to mention something because you think it might not look good on us, but this is 33 years of selling worldwide. I'm not afraid of anything that you come up with. And it's longer than that since I invented the feet. That was when I made them fit all machines. I'd been doing it since I was 19. So it's unlikely you're ever going to do anything I haven't already done. So come on, bring it on. Be more active in the school. I'm very excited to answer your questions. The other needle was the SUK. SUK needle is now called the ballpoint needle. And it's silly. I mean, the ballpoint, it's really just maybe they don't call it that. Maybe they now call it the knit needle. I don't know. They just keep changing. So just remember the main thing. If your item is going to be stretched, worn, because it'll be stretched if it's worn, washed. What's the other thing? I'm pretty sure there's more than one. Stretched, washed, or worn. Then you make sure you don't use a sharp needle. If you're making a wall hanging and you're never going to wash it, well, you can just have at it. You can do anything you want. Use any thread you want. Use any needle you want. But if you're going to make something that needs to be washed, it needs to be sustainable. And that's when it's really important to follow the science that I list in the Creative Feet Technical Guide and Workbook. You will not be devastated by something falling apart on you. If you use the bamboo batting, if you never stretch your fabric when you sew, using the satin edge foot eliminates the need to do that. When you sew curved seams and you stretch your fabric to sew them together, if you square it off, then throw it in the washer and dryer, it will shrink and everything about that quilt will be destroyed. So following the science is super important. And The Science of Sewing and Quilting is a book that I've been working on for a few years. If I have one day, I'll have more time to finish it, and I will finish it. Meanwhile, you have access to me. Don't hesitate to reach out. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I sure hope you'll do so today. And if you're on Facebook watching, be sure to join our Facebook group. It, I believe, is listed as Claire Rowley Creative Feet. And also like our fan page for Creative Feet, so you don't miss out on any of the videos that come up. Know that we go live every Thursday at 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. I don't know if you noticed that in the school when I did the notification, you can click on Mountain Standard Time now, and it takes you to a page so you know what time it is. I thought I'd be nice and give you the link. I love you guys so much. I will see you next week, Thursday at 2. Bye. You're welcome. I enjoyed spending my Saturday with you guys. Bye.